All right, welcome to case study number 22 of this series, so brilliantly titled Kirk's 40 Case Study Closings. I'm your host, Ryan Kirk, and these case studies range from vacant lots to custom luxury homes and total $2,042,081.71 in profits and equity without having to personally go see the property on some. With no cash, no credit of my own, it varies, and I'll explain, and I do it all with Flip Logic and 1-888 Cash Offer. Now let's get into number 22 of the 40 case studies. And that brings us to 2295 East Acacia Road in Palm Springs, California. If you know where Palm Springs, California is, this is actually just north of the Palm Springs Airport. So it's actually almost kind of over in the flyover zone of Palm Springs. So not like the greatest area, but not the worst. From the ARV came out to 450, as you see there. So let's talk about it. Looking at the property, this is a street view, definitely a fixer, right? So here's the deal. It's an off-market property. The origin came from for sale by owner Craigslist. You can duplicate that lead origination by using the Craigslist campaign in the Flip Logic, or you can just go to Craigslist if you want. So it was for sale by owner, property condition, just cosmetic repairs, and if you wanted to match the comp that just sold right next door, you would need to add a bedroom. So you'd have to reconfigure your floor plan, move a wall, create a wall in order to add that bedroom. I think this was a 2-2, and they needed to get it to a 3-2, I believe. So the seller's motivation was she was downsizing, and she had already picked out a place in a mobile home park community, and she hadn't put in an offer yet, but she was working on that. So that was her motivation. The ARV came out to about 450. We had placed the repairs at about $40 a square foot, and that would be to touch everything from the roof to the pool to the flooring to the kitchens to the baths to the landscape, everything. So $40 a square foot is what we'd estimated, and the purchase price that we got was $230. And of course, we used the law of reciprocity. Hey, this is seller. If I paid all cash, paid all closing costs, and closed on the date of your choice, what's the best price you can do? And this seller, I remember, she was one of those sellers. I guess I don't want to say this, but I guess when you would, if you were to walk into the house and meet her, she's the kind of woman that you think you would find with like a tinfoil hat on, just a little out there, and but sweet and very nice. So we all have our quirks, right? So she wanted three. I think she wanted three. She wanted in the mid threes. I think she wanted like 350. And I said that's what she wanted for it, because I asked her if we paid all cash, paid all closing costs, closed on the date of your choice. What's the best price you could do? And she said she could do, 350, and she would like to close. I think she wanted to close like in a week. And I said, 14 days is probably the most comfortable for us. And she said, oh, okay, well, 14 days it is. So we agreed upon 14 days. I said 350. I said, how did you come up with 350? Because I knew that's on the high side, especially for a fixer like this. I said, how'd you come up with 350? And she said, well, that's kind of what I want. And the property next door, it was on the market, I think, for 550. And of course I pulled up the comps and I said, oh, the one, right next door. She said, yeah, it was on the market for 550. And I said, did you notice? I actually said it just closed right before we started having this conversation, maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks prior. And I said, did you notice that it closed? And she said, oh, it did it. And I said, yeah. I said it closed at 450. So they were asking 550, but that's not what they got. Sat for a couple weeks, did some price reductions, ended up closing at 450. So that's what we could anticipate getting for this property after all the improvements are completed. She said, oh, I see. I said, she said, wow, they really did a nice job on that house. It was a really great renovation. I said, how much do you think that it would cost to bring your property up to the same condition as that property that just sold? And she said, well, it must cost probably, I would guess $100,000 to do that. And I said, okay, well, let's just go over some simple math then. I said, let's take 450, and again, this is just reverse engineering from a spreadsheet, right, from your pro forma. But I'll sometimes just do some rough numbers like this. So I said, well, if we're looking at 450, right, and if we were to take off times 0.90 to take off 10% in closing and carrying costs, you typically have 5-6% just in realtor fees alone, and then you've got your property taxes during the closing, during the time of the project, the property taxes, the insurance, utilities, our financing costs, and then we also have about 1% in title and escrow fees and transfer fees. So if you were to average it or round it, we're about at 10%. So that would put us at $405,000. Then if you take $100,000 off for the repairs to bring it up to that 450 valuation, we're at $305,000, and that's just break even. She's like, oh, I see. So I said, you can see how 350 isn't a viable number for any investor. And she said, right. And then I said, we have to have our ROI, our return for the time and the risk and, the capital of doing the project. And she said, yes, I understand. So I said, really where I want to be, I really want to be around 200,000. Is that a number that would work for you? And she said, oh no, 200,000, that's too low. And I said, that's too low, huh? She said, yes. I said, well, what number would work for you? And she said, okay, I know what number I want. I have a number. She said, are you ready? And I said, I'm ready. She said, I will take 230. And I thought, 230. So I said, if I were to write up the offer today at 230,000, pay all the closing costs, and write it with a 14-day close of escrow, that's a number you and I can agree upon today and open up escrow tomorrow. Is that right? And she said, yes. She said 230, and those terms would work for me. I said, that's probably a little more than I'd like to pay, but that's a fair number, and I would be happy to write it up and move forward. So why don't I go ahead and do that, and then I'll send it over, and we can get started. How does that sound to you? And she said that would be great. And that's how that negotiation went with this property. So we ended up doing a marketing blast. As you know, I talk about whether you have to personally go see the property or not. This one, you would have to personally go see the property. The reason is because it's owner occupied. And when you have your investors do their inspection, they're going to go along with their contractor. And again, you don't want them fraternizing with the seller. So instead of me personally going, I had sent somebody local that I know down there, and compensated them for their time for being there to get there early, 15 minutes early, meet the seller, let them know that they're there on my behalf, and that we're going to have I think we probably had several investors show up there that day because we did a marketing blast. That's where our investor came from. It was from our existing list, and then you can also pull a cash buyer search in that area with some keywords and the location using our tool there, our instant cash buyer tool, and pull buyers in that area and do a marketing blast. Now, we had a lot of interest in this right away. So when we set up the inspection, say, 48 hours out, right? 2 days from when we got it under contract, I knew we were going to have several parties there. So as to not frighten the seller or to have them be concerned with all of the foot traffic, you definitely have to be there, or you have to have somebody on your team be there on your behalf. So I had somebody on my team go 15 minutes early, say, hey, we're going to be having several of our investors and several contractors walk through here today. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what's going to be happening here in the next few minutes. We'll have everybody get through here, and then we'll be out of your hair. And she said, okay, that's fine. So then that way the seller's prepared when that whole parade, if that's the case, if you do end up having a parade of investors and their contractors show up that day, then that way the seller is in the know, right? Communication is key. So that's how that happened. And then as far as like having to use any cash for the deal, the funding we used, we put it under contract, and we used an assignment to assign it to the cash buyer or investor. And they used private money, so they used their cash and private money or hard money to close on it. We moved this property, we assigned it, immediately, from when we got it under contract. So we didn't have to wire any money of our own as a deposit into escrow. As you know, you have 3 business days from acceptance to wire in a deposit. If you can assign it to a cash buyer within that time frame, they can wire the deposit, and then you would never have had to wire one, because that's in there in lieu of yours ever having to be in there, because they beat the cutoff. And then the vesting just changes from them to you, and then your assignment fee, in this case it was $30,000, goes on to the buyer's settlement statement. As you've heard me mention before in past case studies, you can amend that 3 business days of when the deposit is due. You can amend it to say 5 business days, and that should give you about 7 calendar days, which is a whole week, to market the property, get your investors over there, for them to complete their due diligence, and for them to give you a non-contingent price for them that they're comfortable and ready to move forward on by signing an assignment and wiring that deposit. So you can see how if you market the property right away to an existing list, or pull that instant buyer search through FlipLogic, check out some of the comps, look up those buyers on the comps that were flips, and reach out to them and pitch the deal. You should have plenty of buyers to be able to choose from and contact and get interested, within 24 hours of you even getting the contract. And if you have them over there the next day or the day after that, they should have a decision as far as the price that they're willing to pay with no contingencies by the end of that day or the next day. So you can see how 3 business days can be a little tight unless you're moving in to a weekend, and you can change that from going into the contract on a Thursday and not having to wire a deposit until Monday. You can see how that would be in your favor. That would give you almost 5 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But how 5 business days is plenty of time, and how 3 business days can be adequate, but 5 is definitely better if you're truly looking to go no cash, not even a deposit in escrow. Of course, if you end up wiring a deposit, that's going to come right back when your buyer wires their deposit in. Escrow is going to wire your deposit back to you, amend the vesting, put your assignment fee on the buyer's settlement statement. So that's how that went. So didn't have to go personally see it, didn't have to put in a deposit, used no cash, no credit of my own, and generated a $30,000 profit on this deal. So not bad. And again, if you look at the ROI, 30,000, if you divide that into 450, divide that into the ARV, so 30,000 divided into 450, so it was about a 6%, 6% of 450. So more than most realtors would make, because it was a little over 6%, and then usually realtors split it, so they only end up with maybe 2.5. So great deal, and didn't have to use any cash, credit, or even personally go see it. So I hope that helps. And once again, and I know I just skipped my famous slide here. I screwed that up. But statistically, if only 10% of YouTube videos are watched until the end, so if you're in that 10%, you're a hustler, persistent, determined to succeed. I wish you much success. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you.